workplace study, 91% of millennials change their jobs every 3 years.
Very different to how it used to be.
And the recruitment specialists indeed found in their research that 36% of people are actually disliking their jobs, meaning out of a working population of some 33 million, we have about 10 million people in the UK who actually don't like their jobs. I find that quite shocking. Really? Is it that many?
And that research also found that 72% of the people that said they disliked their jobs reported a negative impact on their well-being.
This is not looking good, is it?
So, not a great context.
No, it's not a great, but it's a good context we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
And that is, of those people, well, does everybody decide to move? Probably not.
It's interesting because Google searches for I want to find a new job or a question like that were up by 194%. So if that many people are searching or searching on how to access a new job, how many of them actually took the leap to do it? I guess it wouldn't have been all of those people.
Well, we know one of the limiting factors in that is certainly going to be, have they got the confidence to do it? I mean, you and I both meet lots of people who want to do something different, but they just lack that confidence. So that is the context of today's discussion. What can we offer that will enable those people that are thinking about changing their role, but are faced with that needing to gain more confidence to take that leap?
Yeah. So in this episode, we're going to explore some of the reasons why people become stuck and what keeps them in a position of dissatisfaction. And then, importantly, the strategies in terms of how to get out of that.
Yeah. Or for any of those employers listening who are now starting to panic, thinking I'm going to mass exodus of people.
Quick, turn off.
Of anybody listening to this podcast, are there some things they could do to stay and be happier?
Yeah.
As well? Because it's not always about switching roles. Certainly large corporations offer many opportunities. And turning left, turning right, doing something slightly different within the same organisation is an alternative as well.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
For those people that really want to make that leap, then sure, we can talk about what some of those strategies are that we've shared with other people. And we know for sure it works.
It does.
In our recent program of some, I think it's 8 or 9 power-uppers, not 1, 2, but 3 people have decided to quit their jobs and do something different.
Have you had any employers knocking on your door saying...
Well, one of the things I always say to employers when we run a version of this program, when they do say to me, well, isn't there a concern that people get motivated and they're going to leave? And I said, well, that's one way of looking at about it. But what about all those people that are demotivated and they stay? Maybe this is about people finding their place in the world. And for every job you've got that you're actually not enjoying, that could be done by someone else. So, maybe a different way of looking at it. Okay, let's get started.
Have you ever taken the safe option yourself and stayed in a job that you disliked?
A slightly tough question, that actually. Typically, no. Typically, no. I would err on the side of being a risk taker, if I'm honest.
You surprised me.
Yeah, well, that habit has got me into trouble. A few scrimps and scrapes, and perhaps, maybe I should lower my risk taking. I think I have possibly suffered at times in one of the roles I was in staying in a particular role within that company, perhaps for a little bit too long.
Yeah.
And, I spoke on an earlier podcast about the rumble strips on the side of the road. When we veer off to the right, the rumble strips remind us we're about to run off the road. So I've had that experience and maybe let it rumble for too long. And then, of course, that erodes your confidence. You're not coming at it with the same gusto.
Yeah, and
So-
it has, the longer you stay, the more opportunity for those fears to take hold and build and gain strength.
And you start convincing yourself that you need to stick with what you've got.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I when years and years ago, Ernst & Young merged with Capgemini, I initially took the safe option of staying with the merged company and going into a role that was the safe option, but just was not my passion at all. And, could have continued down that vein. But then that was when you rang me and said, we need a piece of recruitment done. And that was the start of a very long journey.
Yes, that was, yes. Yeah, yes. I mean, long and enjoyable, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. Right.
So in your experience then, what are some of the things that keep people stuck? So in the context of those statistics, why do some people choose to stay where they are and handle that dissatisfaction or live with that dissatisfaction?
I think one of the biggest reasons is, it's the better the devil you know. And we build a certain amount of comfort in our workplace, don't we? We've got a boss that's okay. It's easy to leave a boss that's not okay, but let's say you've got a boss that's okay, or even better than okay. The organisation are looking after me. I'm doing all right. Maybe I should just be happy. Maybe it's just put up, shut up, and stop complaining. I mean, I've got friends who hate their jobs. I don't hate my job. I'm just not that excited about it anymore. So, we have this sort of way of keeping ourselves within our comfort zone.
And I think as well, there is will the grass actually be greener on the other side? Or could I find myself jumping out of, the frying pan into the fire type of
And if you're not having
situation?
that conversation with you, I guarantee some of the negative Nelly will. Oh, you want to be careful, Lisa.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend the other day, did what you did, all in a complete disaster. You really don't want to be doing that. Or I did it once and it was a disaster. Or my friend, and, I was hearing a story about X, Y, Z, etc., etc. So there'll be someone getting in your ear about it.
And it's interesting as well because the stat that we saw about, millennials, it might, it's in their nature. So millennials, those individuals that were born between 1981 and 1996. So if they are much more comfortable with changing roles every 3 years, as you said, if you talk to somebody in that age group, they might be encouraging. If I was to talk to my parents, for example, or someone where job for life was the thing to do.
Job for life, absolutely. That was something to be proud of.
Yeah. So we're sort of in this sort of slight between the two situation, aren't we?
Well, I think in that category you spoke about, 80s through to 90s. Yeah, we had the crash in the 80s, but largely that was a period of abundance and moving forward.
Yeah.
And they didn't really know any different didn't know to fear. And maybe that's a great thing. I've got two sons who fall in that category. And, within a very short period of time of taking their first job, they've gone to another job.
Yeah.
A better job.
But in our context, it's like, how's that going to look on your CV?
Yeah.
Well, actually, now, if that's the norm, it would maybe look negatively for people that have just stayed in one job. They're going to be in the minority. And the other thing I was sort of thinking, what do you feel the impact of the pandemic might be on those individuals that may be dissatisfied but not wanting to change?
Well, I think the pandemic has been great in a way for people to actually reevaluate because we've had a very different environment, haven't we? We've got a taste of, it's like a massive big pattern interrupt, isn't it? You're getting up at a certain time every day, going to work at the same time, coming home at the same time, you're in a routine. Suddenly that routine has changed. You're spending more time at home, seeing your family more often. Maybe you're not as tired as after your commute. It's definitely caused people to reevaluate. I mean, look at the revolt we've had in some organisations asking people to go back to work in the office and having to commute. So I think that decision to make a change has been, the whole pandemic has been good for change.
And you
in
might
that
even
professional-
find individuals that maybe were dissatisfied in their job, but it might have been down to the working hours or the distance of the commute. So those individuals where, they have got options for flexible working, that might have brought a solution to the issue. But I also think that with the pandemic, and obviously a lot of people were displaced in their work, so ones that did manage to keep their jobs, that could also encourage the need for security. And once you're in somewhere, we're fresh out of the back of a massive level of disruption. So if you got a job, you're lucky, and you should keep it.
Well, that's the other side of the equation, I guess. I think on balance, though, I would say I would favour in the side of people perhaps being more willing to investigate. I mean, recessions aren't helpful. This is another reason that people will hold back, and the onset of a recession, or the threat of a recession, or it being talked up in the press, that makes people better stick with what you know. At least I've got an income. I mean, this brings up the question that we often get: is there really a bad time to change or a good time to change? Listen, I'm really convinced of this, that there really isn't such a thing.
No.
I mean, you can hypothesize about it, but really, there never seems to be the perfect time. The only time I would say that you need to be concerned with is the time you're losing by not taking action. Because most of the people that have made a leap to do something different, the mantra they sing all the time is, I just wish I'd done this earlier.
Yes.
And actually, to be honest, once you commit, what happens? You find a way.
Yeah. And if you're feeling those rumbles from the rumble strips, then that is a strong signal. And if you don't act on that and you don't change, then are you being true to yourself, and are you doing yourself a disservice? By settling for less or different than your true path.
I'm just reflecting on that point around recessions. I'm old enough to have been through, I think I counted up about 4 or 5, and I'm still alive. And I survived them all. All right. And actually, when I look back, and whether or not I stayed with the same company, or there's been a couple of occasions where I have been made redundant back in my 20s, and obviously the one that was like 12 years ago, when there was a downturn in 2008, another one. Best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
When I hear clients, people talking to me about this, I'm okay. I know I err on the side of optimism, and I'm not being reckless here. If you've got a family of 6 children and relying on you, but you've got to make more think more carefully about your decisions you're making. But on balance, my belief is that we're great at surviving. We're great at finding a way. So I don't buy into this idea that a recession I can't think of any other reason why really someone should stay in a life doing something they're not enjoying. Whenever I've worked through these things with clients and we've had these discussions, we always come to the same conclusion, that really there's no reason why you wouldn't make this change at this time. Because as they look back and through their life, they've had other occasions where it's been the same, and they've either stayed where they are and they've just been unhappy, or they have decided to move and they survived and they've gone on to better things. Doesn't always work out straight away, but one thing leads to another. And actually, I remember Steve Jobs in his Stanford speech, he talked about this concept of joining the dots backwards. Look at where you've got to today. Just think about that for a moment. It's a great exercise to do. It's just to sort of reflect on, how did I get here? What led to this point? Look, I did this, and that was rather fortuitous. Oh, that was good. Oh, that, yeah, lots of happy coincidences start to happen. And, when you get intentional, when you get focused, when you get clear, the world conspires to help you. So it's not the change that's the problem. It's the transitions, the psychological transitions that do you in. And once you get practiced at that and you get your head around it, it becomes easier. It's not the change itself. Every change carries a degree of excitement and fear. The problem is, as we know, the brain's job is to protect you.
Yeah.
Right?
It wants to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And change is unsafe.
Yeah, exactly. So it keeps us locked in, keeps us in those comfort zones, and steals away some, living a life that we could be enjoying.
So, what are some of the sort of the old saying is that your fears lie in your excuses and the reasons why you haven't done something. So, what are the excuses that and the fears that you feel sometimes get in the way?
I need to finish my training. My second child is just moving school. My second child is staying at the same school. My children are about to go through exams.
I'm just going to wait till my mortgage is at a certain level.
I've got a holiday coming up.
Yeah.
My mother's not very well. I need to prove to myself I can do my own role better. I need to get some more training. I need to polish my shoes. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
There are tons of, and I'm not trying to be dismissive, by the way, or flippant about a serious decision here. But I do think we need to be honest about these so-called excuses. Really, if you get behind the excuse, as you said, guess what's sitting there? There is a fear. And one of the exercises we do in the classroom is to ask people, what's the one thing you would do if it would create a major breakthrough in your life? And people write these things down enthusiastically, and then we ask people, what stopped them from doing that? And lo and behold, we get people to post-it note these things and write them down. And there are two things that appear on the board. One are fears, a whole list of different fears: fear of exposure, fear of failure, getting found out, imposter syndrome again. And then you get a whole list of excuses.
Yeah.
Time, not quite the right circumstance, need to do all the other stuff I listed previously. But actually, if you get behind the excuse and say, well, what's really behind that? It comes back to the same thing again, and it's fear.
Yeah. And they can all be distilled into a list of, 8 or 10 fears. They're common to everybody, aren't they?
Let's move on to how we help people move past this.
Just before we do,
okay.
I saw a quote in Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and he said the key is to outwit the ghosts of fear. And I quite like that. We need to, the fears are always going to be there, but we need the tools and strategies to outwit them and not let them dictate the direction our lives take. Napoleon
Hill, arguably one of the most profound books
was
written.
That the first
Think and Grow
book?
Rich, I was given that when I was 19 years old. I've got this very well-thumbed, scruffy little book. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Napoleon. And, so many of the truths written in that book, I think he was sponsored by Andrew Carnegie, the tycoon in the States, to write that book and make a study.
Yeah,
and it's a brilliant. A little aside there, but yes, I like that, tackling those. What do you call them? The
outwit the ghosts of fear.
Yeah, the ghosts of fear. Right.
How do we outwit these ghosts of fear? Because I know that leaning into those fears and using them as fuel, they are there for a reason and can be used for a positive purpose as well.
Well, you came up with a good little acronym, didn't you, for this?
Yes, I did. Pact. Make a pact with yourself.
Make a pact with yourself, which I like. So, what is a pact? What is it? What does the PACT stand for?
Any goal that you have in your life, pick a goal and make a plan in terms of when you would like to achieve it by. So, what does success look like and by when? The A stands for assessing your fears. So, in achieving that goal, when you think about pursuing that goal, what are some of the fears that you feel might get in the way, and really be honest with yourself and what actually comes up. And the C is to actually challenge those fears and use... Martin has actually come up with some very good confidence hacks that we'll share with you in a second, but use some simple tools and strategies to challenge those fears and reframe them and use them as fuel to move towards what you want, not away from it. And T, the good old take action.
Can't substitute that.
Yeah.
Okay, so make a pact.
Yes, make a pact with yourself.
Yeah. So thinking, for those people listening to this thinking, okay, sounds good. Maybe, and it's important, by the way, that this is a doing thing, not just a listening and knowing thing. We really want you to, not to know more about stuff. We want you to do more with what you know. Which
is why for every one of our podcast episodes, there is a tool for you to go and do something with.
Absolutely. So thinking about the plan, just a couple of things. We're not going to go into a big detail on this today, but I do think it's important for people to do a little bit of work on what the Japanese called is your ikigai. Really start to think, and there's a few books on this. A little blue book on Amazon. You can get it.
Translate as reason for being or something.
Reason for being. Yeah. Living with joy. Yeah. Living with fun. Doing something you love. But it goes a little bit further, and I just think that at the heart of what brings happiness, particularly in your career, is doing something you enjoy. Yeah. So, start with that and look at it selfishly. Don't look at it, as I said, I think I've mentioned before, don't come at this from a place of fear. Otherwise, again, you go, oh, well, I know I can do that, and I know I can do that, and that, oh, I don't know how I can do that. And suddenly, you're veering back to the place you started. So try and come from a place of, what's your wish list? What would you love to do? If fear wasn't a problem, put it aside.
That's a great piece to add in there. Assuming there was no fear, dream big, let yourself go. What would you do?
Exactly.
What would you want to do?
Just allow that to get that out of the way. The lovely phrases say, who would you be without the fear? What would you dream without the fear? So put that aside, allow yourself to go there. Scribble it down, write it down. You're not going to do this in a 5-minute sitting. Do it over the course of a month, a couple of months. Take it on holiday, take a journal. Keep writing those things down. Think about the aspects of your job that you really love. What are the things that you really get you excited when you look at your diary? So write those things down. What are the things you love to do? What are the tasks you love to do? What kind of environment do you like to work in? What kind of tasks or work really stretch you and get you excited?
Our friend Colin Hiles says smile on and smile off, doesn't he? What are the things that you do that are smile on, make you happy, fulfill you? And what are the things, like for me, getting the ironing done, that is smile off?
So absolutely, I love that little phrase. Smile on, smile off. That's exactly it. So do think about that. Make a list of those things, and then this helps you get closer to what you might describe as your purpose. We'd love to do another session on purpose because it's too much for today. Yeah. But just to think about is the why behind the what. Why? What is your purpose in? Where would you be happiest doing and contributing to the world? And doing something on purpose definitely is a massive contributor to people's happiness. So start with that, and then start to play around with a sort of mission vision. So where would I like to be? And this can be 1, 2, 3 years out from where you are. Think about some of the values that you really like, what kind of work. So for me, variety of work, being able to be creative, innovative, freedom from control, autonomy. What's your list of things? So this helps you sort of get clearer about the plan. We can come back to this, but that's a sort of start point for that. And then as you do this, no doubt, you will feel a little twinge every now and then. Oh, yeah, there's you can feel the brakes being
It's
applied.
the but, isn't it? Yeah, but. Yeah,
So this is the next bit of your formula here, the accessing the fears.
Assessing the fears, yeah.
Just notice when you're going through the exercise, what are those things that come up for you? Because the first thing to do is to acknowledge them. You know, you can't. You can only change and influence those things that you become aware of. So what are those thoughts that are coming to mind? Don't try necessarily solve them, but just get them down on paper. Work with a coach on this, by the way. It's a great thing to do is work with a coach on this.
And I think you know, it's great that you said, you know, do this over a period of time, because, you know, you might be going for a walk and thinking about the work you've done around your purpose, and something might come up. You can go and note it down. You know, just keep adding to that list so that you can really reveal them all, because it's revealing to heal them.
Exactly, reveal to heal, lovely phrase. So this is the most critical thing then, is to assess these fears, write them down. Notice when you start getting excited about the future, and maybe you even talk to people about it. And by the way, this is a great thing to do with people you feel safe with and comfortable with. Hear yourself out loud talking about what you'd love to do, and notice the congruency in your body. Does it feel congruent? Does it feel like you're kind of bullshitting yourself? Does it feel like you're just telling a story to impress yourself and everyone else around you?
Sometimes people are even scared to articulate it, because then they feel like, you know, I'm putting it out there now. I might have to do something about it.
And noticing that feeling you get. Is it a feeling of genuine excitement? Or are there some things that come up physically for you when you think about doing this? And that's a good way, again, of accessing that fear. What's the feeling you're getting? What do you think is driving the feeling? Be honest. No one's going to judge you. So write these things down. As you said, you know, reveal to heal. So get those things down. Now, once you've got the list, then you can really start to get to work on these fears. So what I'd like to do is just take people through some examples
Of some of the strategies that you can use. Yeah.
Some of the strategies you can use
Yeah.
to tackle the building of confidence. I think there's two elements to this. There are lots of elements to confidence, but just to get a bit of a sort of mental frame here. If we think about what confidence is a state of being, isn't it? It's a feeling. I feel confident. If someone says to me, I just don't feel confident. Okay, well, I notice you're wearing shoes and they've got laces. Were you confident you could tie your laces? All right. Or did you get very flappy and, you know, frustrated or panicked about not being able to tie your laces? Okay. No, you did it unconsciously. You just did it. You walked here. You know, you've been drinking that tea very successfully, or coffee. We are confident.
You have the potential to be confident.
It's just in certain areas that you put that. I'm not confident of that, but I'm confident. So remember that you are doing lots of things every day.
Yeah.
And potentially you're even doing things now that other people would perceive as, wow, you're so confident.
Yeah.
You know, wow, that's really brave for you to do that. So it's not just within, you know, things you are placing outside of yourself. For other people, that could be inside their comfort zone, and vice versa for you.
It's interesting. So the things we do confidently are unconscious, and the lack of confidence is also unconscious.
Indeed, absolutely it is, yeah. So many of them, that's why we don't identify them, we don't deal with them, and, you know, they dream stealers, literally dream stealers. So confidence is a state of being, and there are certain things you can do that in the moment, should you need to be confident.
So going into a meeting or a presentation or something.
Yeah, you know, picking up the phone to somebody, making that first move, or calling somebody, getting some career advice, speaking to a mentor about where you make that first move. You know, if you need to make that first move, are there some certain things you can do in that moment to be confident? I mean, honestly, I'm just talking about careers here, but let's you have to do a presentation and you've got to get your A game on. You know, you've been asked by your boss to do a presentation. It's a great opportunity for you. Right in that moment, there are strategies you can do to be confident.
Yeah.
Remembering that when somebody is confident, they're doing something. When somebody is not confident, they're doing something in their mind, in their body, in that moment. There's creating an emotional state called fear, anxiety, or confidence. So that's one area we can work on. The second area is maybe a slightly deeper, and that is looking at what are the reasons why you feel that lack of confidence in that moment. What is instigating? What's behind it? Peeling back a few layers of the onion. I kind of describe it as some confidence building ideas and strategies is a bit like having a car that gets a little bit, it's not so good in wet weather. It starts to slip and slide a bit. One way of dealing with that is go to skid control classes and learn to be a better driver. Better still, maybe take the car off the road and fix the problem that's causing it to go into a skid. Is there something to do with steering? Does it need different tyres? What is going on? So
it's whether you are addressing the symptom or the underlying cause.
Yeah, absolutely.
Symptom is useful in the moment when you're faced with a challenging situation. Underlying cause is so when you are next faced with that situation, you can approach it with confidence because that is your underlying position for that thing.
I think you've used the analogy before, Lisa, where you go to the doctor and they'll prescribe you some medicine. And that medicine is like a short-term fix, but is it actually fixing the underlying cause? You got a headache, you pop a pill, you need to feel good. You're going out, you've got a presentation to do, you pop a pill, you feel better. If you've got a headache every day, this is not a great long-term strategy. So things to do in the short term, but things I think recommend to do in the long term. So let's have a look at some of the things you can do. So the first strategy is to shut down your inner critic, well, quieten the inner critic at least. But first of all, remember that your brain is only serving up these internal thoughts purely to do one thing, and that is to keep you safe. So it's kind of important. It's not it's not very useful just to say to somebody, stop talking all that claptrap and, you're being negative. What you have to kind of do is honour that part of you that is giving you that negative thought in a way to protect you. Say, look, okay, I understand. Thank you very much. I've got this. I much appreciate you protecting me, but I want you to know that I've got this and I'm on it. And that might have been a useful thought to have 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago when I was a child, but, it's not particularly useful now. We're often taught as kids not to speak to strangers by our parents. That's a very useful belief to have.
Yeah.
If you're a salesperson, not a particularly useful belief to have, all right? Or if you're wanting to be in public speaking or you're wanting to show up in meetings.
And that's right, acknowledging and thanking that part of you that is trying to protect you just helps satisfy that part of your brain that you're safe and you can handle whatever situation it is in front of you. So it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. So what I would recommend that people do is you just write them down. Write down the thought. If you're having the thought, write it down. Write it down. Keep writing the list. You'll find, by the way, you'll get these repeated patterns. Why? Because it's the unconscious programming that's running exactly the same program over and over again. So write the things down. And then once you've got them written down, you can start to question the validity of them. Is this fact or is this fiction? Is this a story I'm telling myself or is this grounded in facts? And
I love the Byron Katie questions that she asks, is this true? How do I know it's true? And who would I be without that thought?
Absolutely.
That's the thing that sets you free.
It's exactly that. And that's a great way to tackle those particular stories, to really question it. And it's actually quite good if you can get someone to do it with you. Is it true? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, but is it really true? Now, come on, is it really true? How do you know it's true? Where's the evidence, right? Who would you be without the thought that it's not true, etc.? So, just and in doing that, you very quickly start to realise that actually a number of these things, they're just fears. They're no truth. I think it's important to remember here that people have got piles and piles of strategies not to be confident. I mean, they've got it completely nailed. They've got it completely mastered. You know, you could write a book and fill up 248 pages with talking about how to screw your life up and not be confident. You know, master not being confident. This is simple. What we're doing here is we're saying this is the flip side of this.
Yeah.
But remembering that that's what your brain does really well, naturally, because that's what it's there to do, is to protect you.
So we're trying to challenge the default mindset and give it a new strategy that moves you in the direction you want to go.
So that's the first thing. Thank the inner critic, but quieten the inner critic.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is what I describe as being the Spielberg of your own mind. We play movies in our head. We then play those movies out in reality. If we think about the lack of confidence has to include, if we say to someone, how are you doing it? What do I need to picture? What am I seeing in my mind? Lo and behold, you'll see that they're playing a movie of negative pictures. They're seeing themselves getting rejected. So using active imagination, imagining yourself doing something in the opposite.
Yeah, doing it well and succeeding.
It's like that classic experiment, isn't it, and you can do this now, is just to imagine going into your kitchen, taking a lemon out of the fridge or a fruit bowl or whatever, cutting it into, picking hold of the lemon, bringing it up to your mouth, and take a big chunk of that lemon and start to eat the lemon and suck the juices out.
It's just like an automatic reaction.
You get an automatic physiological reaction. And the point around that, as all the neuroscientists will tell us over and over again, your brain doesn't really care between something which is real and imagined. So therefore, if we are visualizing something that's happened in the past, re-bringing it up in our brain, guess what? We get the same feeling that went with that original experience. What about if we imagine something in the future that hasn't happened yet, just in the same way I was doing with the lemon, and you start getting a positive feeling from it? You do that enough, and when that situation arises, your brain would go, oh, I've been here before, just in the same way you're remembering an image. I've been here before, and suddenly in that moment you're starting to feel a lot more confident.
And obviously sports people use that all the time, don't they? They rehearse mentally ahead of those big moments in their careers.
All the time. And, you know, if they're doing it and they're world champions and gold medalists, then I think that is a good reason why we might want to investigate it as a technique. I mean, another quick thing to remember is that your brain can't focus on many things at the same time. So whatever is occupying that movie mental space, whatever you're pointing the camera at, is what is consuming you and creating a feeling. If we just do this now, look round wherever you are, just look round the room and notice everything that is brown, even a tinge of brown, even a kind of a shade of brown, dark brown, light brown, beige. Look around the room, literally look at everything you can see in your room, where you are, in the immediate vicinity that is brown right now. Count as many as you can. Fantastic. Okay, now close your eyes wherever you are. Driving, wouldn't be recommending it. And notice everything that is red in the room where you are. And go around the room and see, with your eyes closed, see if you can spot anything that's red. Probably finding it hard to do that. But if you open your eyes now and you look around the room, suddenly you're seeing that actually there's a bit of red on that book there, there's a red on that pen, there's a red on that fire extinguisher sign or whatever it might be. So the point is, where your camera goes, your mind goes, and your emotional state goes. So be the Spielberg of your own mind.
So that's number 2. Number 3?
Number 3 is about practicing self-compassion. And this is just very simply about being kind to yourself. Think about a friend, colleague that is explaining to you their situation. Think about what advice you would give them. If they were in a bit of trouble, they were concerned or fearing something, notice the level of compassion and kindness you have for that individual and how supportive you are to them and how encouraging you are to them. So this is about applying that to yourself. And, you know, we find that hard to do to ourselves, but much easier to do to other people.
Yeah, we tend to always put our own needs last, and it's creating that space and stillness to be able to do that.
The fourth thing is what I call make up your own rules. And what I mean by this is that we have rules that we've set for ourselves in order to feel happy, and we have rules for ourselves that will cause us to feel unhappy or confident, not confident. So, for example, what I find is that people have plenty of rules that are very, very easy to meet that make them feel lacking confidence, but they have rules that are almost impossible to meet to feel confident. So their presentation needs to be perfect. They need to get a huge round of applause. They need to get praise from everybody. They can't allow themselves to make a single mistake, a single fumble, a single and a single R, and have to remember the whole thing back to front verbatim. Ridiculous.
And quite often, even when they've done something enormous like that, they will focus on the one little stumble.
Of course. So therefore, that's the opposite. That's the opposite rule. They've got, as you say, well, I wasn't really very good. I did a brilliant job. I wasn't very good. I messed up the beginning. I didn't finish with my story. I didn't answer that question very well. So in other words, they've got rules that are making it very easy for them to feel bad. It's a really interesting exercise to do.
Yeah.
And I think I first learned this from Tony Robbins in his book, Awaken the Giant Within. And he suggests you making a list of your rules. What rules do you have what has to happen? If you answer this question, what has to happen in order for you to feel happy and confident? Get those things written down. What has to happen in order for you not to feel confident? And look at the two lists. And then I think it was an example of, and I've heard this a few times, I'm never happy unless I've got a 14% body fat ratio. Well, that's like, you're 45 years old and, the average is something like 23, 24%. And you're at 14%. I mean, this is crazy, right? Versus somebody who has a rule where they're happy in their own skin, every day above ground is a great day.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I'm alive, I'm breathing again. Wow, fantastic. Oh,
Which
this
doesn't
is,
always work in people's favour, but I like the sentiment.
The idea is it's worth investigating and just think about what those rules are. So make up your own rules is the thing. Create rules are going to make it easy for you to feel happy and hard for you not to feel confident or for you to feel less than confident. The fifth thing is to what I call fall in love with failure. What I mean by this, if you think about it, what is one of the major reasons that people avoid taking action is because of the fear of failure. Failing, as we well know, is all part of success. It's almost impossible to try and venture into new things, invent new things, to create new ideas without some degree of failure. So falling in love with failure, learning to love failure. Look, I know I'm not a big lover of the word failure in any shape or form, and I very, very quickly reframe it to a learning experience. But I also understand that some people listening to this go, oh, well, come on, let's be honest about it. Failure it's real, isn't it? Yes, it is. So how about giving it a different meaning, learning to love it? If you can't switch to, as I do, failure equals learning, I immediately jump to that. In the last week, have been setting up new technology. In fact, there's even this podcast setup we've got here. Let me tell you, over the last week, it's been quite frustrating. And I've had a few failures.
Learns.
Indeed. But, I learned to laugh at them, and I learned to look at them very quickly and say, what an amazing, rich learning experience this has been. And I'm acquiring some new skills. I've got my growth mindset on, and I'm learning new things. So learning to fall in love with failure. Yeah.
So the fifth one from the list, and again, we're going to provide this as a tool afterwards. The fifth one is around avoiding comparison, because we tend to compare what we feel on the inside to what people show on their outside, But if you could see inside them, you would definitely see exactly some of the same fears that you have for yourself. You know, social media doesn't help, and all of the perfect lives that we have thrust in front of us on the TV and on socials. But, you know, I'll keep it short for this one. But, you know, comparison is the art of all evil.
It is. It really is. And it causes so many people so much anguish. You know, comparing yourself to others. The only people we should compare ourselves to is ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Don't assume what you're feeling on the outside is any different to anybody else.
And the sixth one and final one for today, at least, is what we describe as update your operating system.
Love that one. So how do you update your operating system?
Well, you know, it's like a computer, isn't it? You get a little sign flicking up and it says, you know, you need to upgrade your software system. It's incompatible. But imagine that came up for us. You're trying to complete a task and a little sign came up and said, please upgrade your software system because it's incompatible with the task you're trying to complete. So I've often thought about this idea. You push a button on a computer and that runs the same program. We do the same with our head. We go to do something, we run the same software program that actually is not helping you. It's out of date. It's, you know, it's early Microsoft days. I mean, really, come on, right? It's not helping. It's slow. It doesn't work. It hasn't got the speed. It hasn't got the agility. So upgrade your software system. And
I actually think that all of the things that we've talked about, they all contribute to upgrading that software system, don't they?
That's essentially, it's a good place to finish because that's what it's all about. This has all been about gaining the confidence to take action. And our goal, and that is the last thing, remember, on your pact model, that pact with yourself.
Yeah.
So might we suggest that you take some ideas from this session and you go and take some action?
Yeah.
Now,
and I think that, you know, change does take time and effort. But the important thing is if you choose your fears, you get to keep them, you know, so you can choose to do some work on them, upgrade your operating system and go for the life that you really deserve.
Absolutely, yeah. So you keep arguing for your limitations, you are going to keep them.
That's what I was trying to say.
Over time. And so, it's our wish for you with this is to take action on these things. And that's the last thing. So go through some of the exercises we've suggested, download the little tool we're going to provide you.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Yes, which is going to be about purposefully living.
And that, purposefully living, one of my favourites. Not easy to do. Honouring your intentions. It's okay having intentions, but honouring them. So purposefully living is living true to your purpose. So people have written a purpose, and maybe you've been through the exercise, and if you feel like you've kind of veered off the track a bit, you're not quite living your purpose, not honouring your values, this is going to be a great episode for you to listen to. So we look forward to you checking in next time. As we said every single time, please leave your comments.
We'd love to hear your feedback. And, if you found something of value in this session, please, share it with your friends. That helps people to find us.
Perfect. Look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.